You ever walk into a house and just know something's off? Not because of what you see, but because of what you feel. I was 22 when this happened, and it still keeps me awake at night. At the time, I had just graduated college. No career yet, no real direction, just taking random jobs to scrape together some cash. Babysitting, cleaning, dog sitting, anything that paid under the table. One afternoon, I got a call from a man named Craig. He said he'd be traveling for a week and needed someone to stay in his house to watch his golden retriever, Max. He explained Max was anxious, that the dog didn't like being alone at night. The pay was better than usual. And that's the thing. It sounded easy. Too easy. Craig met me a couple days later. He looked normal enough, late 40s, tall, glasses, that polite but too friendly kind of smile. His house sat on the edge of town, tucked into the woods. You know the kind of place I'm talking about, quiet, secluded. The kind of house where if you screamed, no one would hear you. The first 2 nights were fine. Nothing unusual. I walked Max, ate dinner, fell asleep in the guest room. Max would curl up at my feet. Everything was normal. Until the 3rd night. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed it. On the dresser across from me sat a small digital alarm clock. Black plastic. Bright blue numbers glowing in the dark. At first, it didn't seem strange, but something about it bothered me. The room was old-fashioned, floral curtains, beige carpet, dusty lamps. Yet that clock was modern. New. Sleek. It didn't belong. I stared at it for a while. Then I saw it. A tiny, perfectly round black hole above the numbers. At first, I thought it was a sensor, but the angle, it wasn't pointing at the ceiling or the door. It was pointed directly at the bed. At me. My stomach dropped. You ever feel your whole body turn cold, like your blood just freezes? That's what hit me. I picked the clock up. It was heavier than it should have been. And inside, I swear I could hear a faint buzzing, like a tiny fan whirring. And then it hit me. It wasn't a clock. It was a camera. The second I realized this, Max suddenly perked up. He started whining, staring at the bedroom door. His ears were stiff, his body tense. Then I heard it too. Not the front door, not outside, but inside the house. The soft, deliberate sound of a door closing. Every hair on my body stood on end. Craig wasn't supposed to be back for days. I froze, gripping the clock so hard my hands were shaking. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, on the carpet outside the guest room. I stumbled to the door and locked it just as the footsteps stopped right outside. And then, Craig's voice. Calm, but just slightly. Out of breath. He said he'd left something in the room. He needed me to open the door. I didn't answer. Pause. Then his voice again, quieter. He said the clock wasn't what I thought it was. That it was just a motion sensor for the dog. He said he didn't want to freak me out by telling me before. But I knew. I backed away from the door, my heart slamming so hard against my chest I thought I'd pass out. Then the knocking started, gentle at first, then harder, louder. His voice went from calm to sharp, angry. He was shouting at me now, demanding I open the door. Max was barking and scratching at the door like crazy. The sound only seemed to push Craig further. I looked at the window, low enough to climb out, but locked. My hands were shaking so bad it took me 3 tries to undo the latch. Behind me, Craig was still pounding on the door. He yelled that if I didn't open up, he'd use the key. He said he'd call the cops, tell them I broke in. I didn't wait. I shoved the window open, crawled out, and dropped into the cold grass. My knees hit the ground hard. Max barked louder behind me, but didn't follow. I sprinted down the driveway, gravel crunching under my feet, until the house disappeared behind the trees. My phone was in my pocket. I called my mom, told her to pick me up. I was shaking so bad I could barely get the words out. By the time she arrived, I was hiding behind a row of mailboxes, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds, expecting to see Craig standing there in the dark. The next morning, I blocked his number. I talked to a lawyer. They told me without evidence, without the actual clock, there was nothing I could do. Craig could just claim it was a harmless sensor. My word against his. And that was it. He got away with it. I never went back to the house. Never saw Max again. And for weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep without checking every clock, every smoke detector, every picture frame in my own apartment. But here's the part that eats at me the most. That sound. The door closing somewhere else in the house. It means Craig wasn't just watching me through that camera. He was already inside. And I'll never know how long he was there, or what he would have done if I hadn't noticed the clock. Do you ever stay somewhere that just felt wrong? I'm not talking about a bad hotel or a sketchy rental. I'm in a place that looked normal on the outside, but carried a kind of weight the second you stepped inside. That's what this story is about. It was late September when my girlfriend, Emma, and I booked an Airbnb. Just a little getaway, 3 hours from home, near her sister's town. The pictures made it look perfect. Cozy. Storybook almost. A big wraparound porch, glowing warm lights spilling out of the windows, hardwood floors. The kind of place you imagine drinking coffee in on a rainy morning. But you see, pictures don't tell you what it feels like to be inside. When we pulled up that first evening, the house looked different, weathered. The paint had peeled in long strips, and the trees around it were so thick they almost felt like they were pressing in on the property. There was only one other house in sight, way off in the distance. Just emptiness and woods all around us. Waiting for us on the porch was the host, Alan. Tall, a little hunched, maybe in his late 50s. Gray hair slicked over his head. He wore a pressed flannel shirt tucked neatly into his jeans. And he smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile you feel. It was stiff, practiced. His eyes stayed on us longer than they should have when we shook hands. And the second he started showing us around, his voice carried this subtle firmness, like he wasn't just being polite, he was setting rules. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and something else, sweet, like candle wax. But there weren't any candles. The living room was simple, old television, sagging couch. The kitchen looked dated but clean. Upstairs, the one bedroom had a bed under a ceiling fan and a dresser with a mirror that I swear looked older than the house itself. Then came the basement door. Alan stopped there, pointed to it. A heavy padlock hung on it, and he tapped it with his knuckle. His smile was gone. His voice went flat. That stays locked. It's storage. No reason for you to go down there. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning. After he left, Emma and I sat on the porch for a while, listening to crickets and the rustling of leaves. By the time we went to bed, the silence of the house was almost oppressive. No cars, no voices, just pure, heavy quiet. And that's when the first noise came. Sometime after midnight, just as I was drifting off, I heard it, a dull thud from below us. One sound, then silence. I waited, holding my breath, but nothing else came. I told myself it was just the house settling, but the unease stayed with me until I finally fell asleep. The next night, it got worse. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom. On my way back up the stairs, I froze. From behind that locked basement door came the sound of dragging. Long, slow, something heavy being pulled across a concrete floor. The sound went on for several seconds, stopped, then started again. My first thought was Alan. Maybe he'd come back for something. But no, he said he wouldn't be around. I just stood there on the stairs, listening, my skin prickling. Then I crept back to the bedroom and whispered to Emma. She was already awake. She'd heard it too. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following night, footsteps. Not dragging this time. Footsteps. 4 or 5. Then a pause. 3 more. Each pause long enough to make you think whoever it was had stopped to listen. Emma whispered that she thought she could hear breathing between the steps. And that was when my heart really started racing. We didn't move, didn't speak, just lay there staring at the ceiling until morning. By the 3rd morning, I swear the whole house felt different. Heavier, darker. The air itself seemed stale. During the day, I checked the basement door. Still locked. But when I leaned close, I swear I could smell something. Damp, sour, like old rot just barely covered up. That night, the sound started even earlier. Metallic clinking, like chains brushing against concrete. Then the footsteps again. Longer this time. On and off for almost an hour. Emma barely said a word to me before bed. She was pale, quiet, scared in a way I'd never seen her before. And then came the 4th night. The night everything broke. Emma was brushing her hair when she stopped. Slowly, she looked up and asked me if the smoke detector above the bed looked strange. I got up on the bed and stared at it. At first, nothing. But then I saw it, a perfectly round black dot in the center, shinier than the rest of the plastic. I grabbed a chair, unscrewed it. My stomach dropped. Inside was a small camera, its green light blinking, recording. Emma went pale, silent. I searched the rest of the room and found another lens, poking through a hole near the dresser mirror, both aimed directly at the bed. That was it. We packed up our things in silence. Didn't fold. Didn't even zip the bags all the way. We just shoved everything inside and left. We drove to the nearest gas station and called the police. 2 officers met us there, listened to our story, then followed us back. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the cameras were seized, the equipment taken. Then we led them to the basement door. Except this time, it was wide open. The air that rushed out was damp, cold, black. The officers went down first. Within seconds, we heard raised voices, commotion, then shouting. One of the officers called us down, and what we saw still makes my skin crawl. Alan! Hiding inside a small closet in the basement. In front of him was a monitor, a live feed from the cameras upstairs. He'd been watching us the entire time. He was arrested on the spot, charged with trespass, invasion of privacy. But honestly, that doesn't cover it, because here's what I can't stop thinking about. Those footsteps, that dragging, that breathing we heard. If Alan was hiding in the basement, it means he wasn't just watching. He was moving around down there while we slept. And I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if that padlock hadn't held. You ever move in with someone you barely know? You figure, what's the worst that could happen, right? As long as the rent gets paid, who cares? That was my mistake, and it's one I'll never make again. You see, my name is Joe, and about a week ago, I learned that the person sleeping just a few feet away from me in the next room wasn't just my roommate. He was watching me. Every move, every night. At first, Eric seemed normal enough, quiet, polite, a little awkward, sure, but harmless. We barely crossed paths. He worked late nights at some warehouse. I worked mornings. Honestly, it seemed perfect. Like I had the apartment to myself most of the time. But then I started noticing things. Little things. Like one night, I came home and found my closet door cracked open. I always keep it shut. Always. But I told myself maybe I had just been rushing that morning and forgot. Then, a few days later, my desk chair was turned, angled slightly toward the bed. I never leave it like that. It was subtle, but it made my stomach turn. Like someone had been in my room, sitting there, watching. I brushed it off. At least, I tried to. But once you get that feeling, that prickling in the back of your neck, that something isn't right, you can't unfeel it. And then came the camera. It was a Saturday morning. I was cleaning my room, wiping down shelves, dusting when I saw it up in the corner near the ceiling. A tiny black dot I had never noticed before. I thought maybe it was a screw or a nail. But when I got closer, my blood ran cold. It was a camera, a tiny wireless camera, pointed straight at my bed. You know that feeling when your heart drops into your stomach? When your whole body just freezes? That's exactly what happened to me. I pulled it off the wall. My hand was shaking so bad, I almost dropped it. The thing even had a slot for a memory card, but it was empty, which meant someone had already been taking it out, reviewing the footage. And the only person who could have put it there was Eric. At that moment, he wasn't home. His door was shut, the apartment completely silent. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at that door, my chest tight, my pulse in my throat. I told myself not to do it, not to open it. But curiosity got the better of me. I turned the knob. The smell hit me first. Stale, sour, like dirty laundry and old food. The blinds were shut, making the room unnaturally dark for the middle of the day. His bed was unmade, his desk cluttered with unopened mail, loose change, random papers. I searched a little, half expecting to find more cameras, or worse, recordings. But there was nothing obvious. Just a mess. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. So I decided to test him. I hid the camera in my nightstand drawer, under some socks. My plan was simple. If he came looking for it, I'd know. For 2 nights, nothing happened. I started to think maybe I was paranoid. Maybe this wasn't what I thought it was. But on the 3rd night, I woke up. It was 3 a.m., dead silent. At first, I didn't know what pulled me out of sleep. Then I heard it. A sound, soft, subtle, wood sliding against wood. It was coming from my nightstand drawer. I opened my eyes just a sliver, and in the faint glow of the streetlight seeping through the blinds, I saw him. Eric. He was standing in my room, bent over my nightstand, his hand rummaging through the exact drawer where I'd hidden the camera. I froze. My chest locked up, my heartbeat so loud in my ears I was sure he could hear it. I tried to keep my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. And then he stopped. He froze too. Just still, and slowly he turned his head toward me. His eyes locked on mine. For a second, I thought maybe he wasn't sure if I was awake. But then he spoke. In this low, steady voice, he said, "I know you're awake." I felt ice crawl through my veins. Then he asked me what I had done with it. I sat up instantly, fear mixing with anger. My voice cracked as I demanded to know why the hell he had a camera in my room. He just stood there, staring. Finally, he said it was because he thought I was stealing from him. I told him that was insane, that he had it pointed at my bed, and it was one of the sickest things I'd ever seen. He just kept insisting, saying I was overreacting, that he just wanted proof. We started yelling. My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. I told him I was reporting him, that the landlord, maybe even the cops, would know everything. I yanked the drawer open, grabbed the camera, and held it up. Told him this was proof. He was never getting it back. Then I stormed into the kitchen and threw it in the garbage as hard as I could. When I turned back, Eric was just standing there, in the hallway, his fists clenched, his face completely blank. And then, without a word, he turned and walked back into his room. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat on the couch with the TV on, every tiny sound making me jump. When the sun came up, I checked the garbage. The camera was gone. That was a week ago. Eric still lives here. We don't speak, but the way he looks at me when we pass each other in the hallway, it makes my skin crawl. Like he's waiting, like he's just biding his time. And the worst part? Last night, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door. Slow, heavy. They stopped right outside. For over a minute, there was silence, but I could hear the floorboards creak under his weight. He was standing there, just standing there, listening. And when he finally walked away, I didn't feel relief. I felt dread, because now I can't stop wondering, how many cameras were there, really? How many are still hidden? And what exactly was he hoping to catch?